And these people build that country, South Africa. Everybody else from West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, we go to South Africa the same way we struggle to come to the United States, because you will get better job, whatever you will do will flourish. You will never catch a South African black in any African country who is toiling the streets and cleaning gutters. No, because only 2.8 million white people build that country. Hospitals, schools, roads, railways, mining, you name it. People have jobs. The only mistake they made was to...
Guys, boy, is Franck Zanu sparking an intellectual revolution in Africa, especially among black people across the diaspora and also on the continent. I think Franck Zanu is really moving towards that direction, shaking foundational structures of thought, how we've really been thinking about races, blacks, whites, Indians, coloreds, Asians. The guy is loaded. I'm so shocked by the level of depth the guy encapsulates. And recently he's done a really powerful live. I actually have watched the live, and the amount of knowledge he's actually dishing out to the world is shocking. You know, I'm sure most of his thoughts would anger a lot of people, anger a lot of blacks, anger a lot of whites, anger a lot of Asians, anger a lot of everybody. But at the end of the day, I think he's trying to really... I see him as a social critique, as I said, like the likes of Jordan Peterson, who really rises up in society to really challenge some really dominant norms. And, you know, many times he has spoken a lot about against communism or socialism, as it were. And, you know, as a black person, when I listen to the parties, the MK party in South Africa, the EFF especially, they preach about how they want to be a Marxist-Leninist organization, a socialist organization. And Franck Zanu really criticizes those kinds of thoughts a lot when he argues from history how socialism has failed many states. Many times he makes me laugh a lot when he speaks about how, you know, how just some really crazy statements. He would say how Fidel Castro was a greedy bastard. And sometimes some hilarious statements he makes. He would say Mugabe was a dreamer. He would say, you know, Zimbabwe was the hope of Africa before, you know, socialism took root. And then even the likes of he speaks a lot about Algeria, Somalia, Ethiopia, how these countries, when they experimented with socialism, how the country went down. And yet we are still seeing again in this present time a leader of a major black majority still pushing for socialism as an ideology. For me personally, during my PhD studies, I've told you guys a lot about how, you know, I have a 300-page book, which it hasn't been published into a book yet. I'm still working on that, but it's a dissertation on how Jerry Rawlings, you know, had to ditch away the left-wing party of the PNDC government in Ghana because he called them propagating empty theories. They were socialists and they wanted to really change Ghana's production relations to reflect the likes of the Mao Zedong kind of system where there will be a hegemony of the working class, as it were, in Ghana. In 1981, you know, the December 1st revolution, and by 1982, after 1 year of experimenting this whole thing, Jerry Rawlings was like, these guys are just propagating empty theories. And Ghana shifted to the IMF and the World Bank and became pragmatic in getting loans and really using those loans judiciously. And in 10 years, Ghana was actually said to have been a middle-income country and was on the verge of an East Asia miracle. So this was an experiment we actually saw in Ghana. I think Kwame Nkrumah also tried socialism in Ghana during his period from 1957 all the way to 66 when he was ousted in a military coup in Ghana. He also tried what he called scientific socialism, but somehow the whole system turned him into what many analysts have called dictator, as it were, and we saw the end of that whole experiment. So Franck Zanu is zoning into that now in trying to rope that in and giving us an example of how, you know, the Orania project has become a thing in South Africa, arguing on how it appears that as though Orania saw handwriting on the wall and they got into action. And you know, one of the things Franck Zanu speaks about is how he speaks about the solution. He has an upcoming book he says is coming. He speaks about how the solution to Africa is what he calls the tribal nation, right? That would work with a system called contractor colonialism. In other words, it's a way in which the multiple tribes in Africa would be able to be autonomous without breaking the borders that actually shape the countries today, but can have a certain level of autonomy where they are able to bring in contractors who are skilled in engineering, skilled in building an airport, skilled in building a road, skilled in building things that that tribe is not able to do or have skills or lack skills to achieve those things, and then tax those contractors and then raise money for the community and use those judicials. That would be Franck Zanu's template for development for Africa, which in my head is slowly making sense. The more I listen to it, the tribal nation plus contractor colonialism, because he speaks about how that's how many Arab countries, the likes of Dubai, I think if it's Qatar or so, they knew that they couldn't do this. They couldn't build probably a high standard road. They couldn't drench water by desalination and all that. So they called the German companies or these other Chinese companies or other companies that knew how to do this, and then tax these companies and then generate income for the country. And it's a win-win for everyone. So that contractor colonialism. And in his example in this video where he speaks about how Orania has been able to build a standard city in less than 22 years, all right? To the point where he's trying to compare it to what South Africa seems to have, inherited for the last 30 years and the state of, decay in South Africa generally. He's actually arguing that, Orania, for example, could be a model. And for me, when I think about this, if it would really work for the Igbos, I know the Igbos in Biafra in 1967 tried to achieve a certain form of autonomy where they got into a war with the state. Okay, if that had happened, and they had been successful in trying to get the Republic of Biafra, and probably I was a leader of that movement, I think Orania, the engineers in Orania, for example, on the continent, would have been one of my contractors in this kind of contractor colonialism, where there's an arrangement of a skills knowledge transfer that at the end of the day generates a win-win for everyone. So I think that's what Franck Zanu is actually explaining here in this video, where he speaks and he's trying to break down, for those who do not know, how Orania rose to where it is today, and then how it is that, Orania has been thriving amidst a deluge of, of a majority that still seems to gaze on the ANC government. And really he's blasting a lot of, I don't want to spill the beans, but I think this video is really important. I think if we can watch with humility, especially many black South Africans are bashing me because of the fact that I'm not South African, I'm analyzing these things. I'm actually looking at these things from Nigeria, learning and trying to really get case examples. As an academic, these are case studies, all right, to really expand what's possible for the future of the continent, where we are actually heading towards what has been called a politically united continent. So it's really important that we set our minds in humility to learn about these things and consider, and whether we feel bad or whether we feel because of the fact that the people in Orania have a different racial class or raciality different from us. I think at the end of the day, we are seeing the emergence of a model that could be, for example, imagine if the state in Nigeria is able to give the Igbos in the southeast of Nigeria a certain kind of autonomy where they now eventually practice this contractor colonialism and see the emergence of really well-developed states within the next 20, 30 years, for example. That's a model of development that would come true regardless of whether they are black or white or Indians or colored. We're speaking about the development of the continent. And I think this is what Franck Zanu is trying to pass across. So let's quickly listen to how he analyzes the emergence of Orania from a really humble, balanced, critical lens, and share your thoughts. Let's have a really healthy debate. Share your thoughts in the comments.
Is the visit of Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, to the White House. He actually picked up the phone, and Trump joked to say, I don't know how he got my phone number. He picked up the phone, called Donald Trump and said, hey, listen, I would like to visit you in person, and then we discuss what is going on in South Africa. Because a lot of talks were coming out of South Africa white farmers, some of them, were living in fear of the rhetorics that was going on. You all know the famous 100,000 people in a stadium where Julius Malema was chanting an old Zulu chant, kill the Boer. Boer means Dutch heritage people who are called Afrikaans. Kill the Boer, kill the farmer, pa, 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 pa. And everybody was chanting with them. Now, if you live in that country as a Boer, an African, and you are hearing this chant building up, you must be a different type of soul to say, oh, I don't care, nothing is going to happen. Because it has happened in history so many times. Some people see the writing on the wall, some it takes them a while before they see it. A few people saw it. Maybe they don't have too much of links. They can get up, pack their bags and say, you know what? I'm not going to wait to find out. Let me leave. So the majority who may have bigger farms and corporations and huge families who cannot just get up and leave, okay, maybe they have enough security to give them an assurance that nothing is going to happen to them. Next door neighbor is Zimbabwe. When Zimbabwe got independence, there were, according to what I found on Google, almost close to about maybe 400 or maybe more commercial farms owned by white people in Zimbabwe. Generated employment, and Zimbabwe was the hope and the promise of Africa. When they went to London or the UK, immigration officers helped them with their bags to their car just because they are from Zimbabwe. That was immediately after independence, when the white settlers who colonized the country built that place into almost an European standard country. Commercial farm was the biggest export in Zimbabwe. People have jobs. You will never find a Zimbabwean cleaning gutters in Europe or in any African country. But you will find many Africans in Zimbabwe doing menial jobs. That's how good the country was. Robert Mugabe, the first president after independence, then decided, I'm going to take these commercial farms from the white people. Maybe if I give it to my people, suddenly my people will come up to the middle class. Mistake. He ran the country down to the south completely. Some white people ran away from Zimbabwe. Some went to Kenya. Some went to the UK. Some went to many other places, including South Africa. So we have seen it happen in our own lifetime. Luckily, in Zimbabwe, they are not as very, very violent like the Julius Malema followers who would actually kill. So I don't believe that white people feared for their physical life, but their livelihood that they built for 5 generations was taken away from them in Zimbabwe, Harare, Zimbabwe. May I continue? 1977, Idi Amin took power by force as a military man. What did he do? You must all remember, the British, when they colonized Uganda, brought many Indians from India to build railway lines in Uganda. And they happened to become what? 5th generation Indian Ugandans. They don't even speak their language properly. They don't even know the way back to their home in India. Uganda was their country. They control the hardware, spare parts, pharmacy, laundromats, hotels. Indians, they work hard. They know how to do those things. Idi Amin became jealous. He said, no, maybe the more the Indians got rich, that's why my people are poor. Few, handful of Indians. Their economy is responsible for the poverty of the entire country. He gave them 48 hours to leave. 5 generations in Uganda. He didn't care where they go. He said, leave my country. And one by one, he gave the businesses owned by the Indians to the Ugandans. It took less than 10 years. They ran it all down to the south. Uganda's economy flopped and has never recovered. The same thing happened in Ghana. Under Dr. Buzia in 1969 chased away all West Africans, especially Nigerians who were living in Ghana. They left their farms, their stores, mechanic shops, oh gosh, everything behind. Ghana never woke up again. It never did. Then comes Rawlings, J.J. Rawlings in 1979, kicked out all the Lebanese who owned all the hardware and building material shops in Ghana. The country went so down. Ghanaians starved for years in 1984. So we've seen it happen. Sometimes when you see the writing on the wall, you better pack your bags and leave. And slowly, it's boiling and boiling and boiling. And if Julius Malema ever can control 10,000 people and unleash them on these white people, it will be a bloodshed. It is so bad, as I speak to you, Mr. Voost has built now what is called the Orania project in South Africa. He paid the ANC government money and bought acres of land thousands of miles away from Johannesburg. He said, enough is enough. I'm not going to wait for my children and my children's children and my neighborhood for a bloodshed. He saw the writing on the wall and began to build a community for himself and fellow Africans. You must be of a Dutch heritage, speak only Afrikaan, be a Calvinist, which is their religion, for you to qualify to live in the Orania project community. Only 3,000 white people have built the Orania project to the level of an European city in less than 22 years, guys. 3,000 of them. They bought the land. The Constitution of South Africa contains these clauses. Because South Africa is made up of more than 12 tribes and 7 major ones, anyone is free to carve a place for himself to protect his heritage, religion, language, and culture. It's in the Constitution. So Mr. Voost and the Oranian citizens are not doing anything at all criminal or wrong. But in the last 10 years, the media, the left wing, they've gone after this man. For what? Simply building a community of my own. It's like blaming a man who lives on a ranch in Texas and doesn't have anything to do with anybody. They don't rely on the government of South Africa. They build their own energy supplying company. They build their own fire stations. Their kids walk barefooted in Orania. They leave their doors open. Not a single crime against any young girl or young boy. They are preserving, one, their health, their security, their heritage, their language, and their religion. Nothing wrong with it. But they are calling them apartheid people right now. So this word apartheid is what led to what South Africa is going through right now. In 500 years, settlers, not colonizers, that is a difference about South Africa. The Dutch, or otherwise called the Boers, came there to settle in order to build rest stop for ships going to Indonesia and India. Long story short, it's been 500 years. Their only nationality is South Africa. Uniquely, the only country in Africa, if not the whole world, that has 2 distinct races, both being citizens. Beautiful thing. Beautiful if you ask me. I wish all other African countries, we could have that. And these people build that country, South Africa. Everybody else from West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, we go to South Africa the same way we struggle to come to the United States, because you get better job, whatever you will do would flourish. You will never catch a South African black in any African country who is toiling the streets and cleaning gutters. No, because only 2.8 million white people build that country. Hospitals, schools, roads, railways, mining, you name it. People have jobs. The only mistake they made was to ask to make it into law apartheid. Apartheid simply means, in English, segregation. We are Dutch, Boers, Calvinist. We don't like mixing. So, you stay in your district. You were in your tribes. The Xhosas, the Zulus, the Limpopo, whoever you are, you were in your tribes before we arrived, and we took this little place here. What is the point now? You wanting to come and mix up with us? That's it. Apartheid simply means, you know what? You, the tribe people who have your tribe before we came here, remain where you are. We came to this bare land and we built it up. That declaration was what gave Mandela and the ANC something to do for 42 years. That a black man of almost 49 million blacks, stopped everything they were doing to rely on 2.8 million white people, that if I don't come to your beach, if I don't come to your schools, your clinic, your hospitals, then my life is not going to be okay. Seriously? Who is the majority in South Africa? Black. These blacks are of different, distinct tribes, for those of you who don't know. The Zulus were the ones who wanted to create a Zulu nation. They are the largest, most powerful. They are found in the KZN, what is called KwaZulu-Natals, okay? Then we have the Xhosas, the second largest, which is Mandela's tribe, and on and on and on and on. So the blacks who live in South Africa are not one monolithic group of black people who say, we all speak one language, we are all Zulus. No, 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 no. They don't even get along. They don't get along. Blacks in Sudan don't get along. Blacks in Nigeria don't get along. It's getting so bad that Nnamdi Kanu is asking that the Igbo tribe should break away from Nigeria. Blacks in Cameroon are cutting each other's throat as I speak because they want to separate from each other. Blacks in Rwanda couldn't get along. They killed hundreds of thousands of people. And you are asking a distinct race of white people to allow you to mix up with them. So fast forward. The rhythm is getting bad and bad. There are photos. I don't know anything about it, if it's true or not. I'm only sharing what I've seen, just like you. There are photos. Video of Mandela chanting is plenty. Kill the white man, kill the white man. And then recently, the parliament wants to pass a bill that they will take land from the white people with no compensation. As if land is the reason South Africans are poor. Seriously. Show me one South African black who have seized minimum 200 acres of land and turned it into a commercial farm in South Africa way before the white men arrived. None.